Mike Huckabee is a big believer in religious freedom, but how far does his commitment to that religious freedom for other religions actually go? Let's find out together in this video clip.
There's another case that's been playing out in the media, and that is of this Muslim flight attendant who was suspended from her job because she was not comfortable serving alcohol to passengers. Does that flight attendant have the right to deny all the passengers on that plane who don't share her religion alcohol?
Historically, we have made accommodations for people with religious convictions. You've seen it at Michigan, where they spent $25,000 providing foot baths for Muslim students. I think most notably, I saw it personally when I visited Gitmo. And I watched as for terrorists who were being detained at Gitmo.
Yeah.
There were signs painted on the floor that directed them to Mecca. We gave them prayer rugs and provided expensive halal meals that cost more than 3 times what the meals cost for the soldiers who guarded them.
So in other words,
we have a history of accommodating.
So it is okay for the flight attendant who does not believe in drinking alcohol to not serve it to the passengers on board the commercial flight who did want to have a drink?
I think people try to make accommodations wherever they can. Sometimes maybe it can't be done. But in this case, there was no attempt to make an accommodation for Kim Davis. The governor could have done that in Kentucky.
I love it. I love it.
Fucking coward refuses to actually say whether he believes that there should be accommodations made.
Right.
He says, oh, sometimes they are. No, do you want there to be?
Yeah.
Should there be?
It's a classic case of a politician deflecting and not wanting to answer the question, and it's because he was called out on his hypocrisy there. He wants to make certain accommodations for a very specific religion, but for any other religion, he's not really that concerned about it. He doesn't really care, exactly. And so whenever you have these conversations about people being able to discriminate against other groups of people while they cite their religion, it's always about protecting Christianity and discriminating against other religions, right?
Yeah.
So if you want my personal opinion, Kim Davis shouldn't be able to be employed as a clerk if she's unwilling to follow the law and do what her job requires her to do. Same goes for the Muslim flight attendant. A flight attendant serves drinks. And while she serves drinks, sometimes she's asked if she can serve alcohol. And if she's unwilling to serve alcohol, I'm sorry, that's part of your job. I don't care what your religion is.
Yeah.
This is not a strong statement against Muslims. It's not a strong statement against Christians. It's a strong statement against religious people who cite their religion as an excuse to not do their jobs.
Yeah, and they're not forcing her to drink the alcohol,
exactly,
just to sell the alcohol.
Exactly.
Again, it's an obvious part of your job. It's not a hidden part of your job that nobody could have known going in would be a part of it. Everybody knows that that's what they do.
Exactly. You just have to do your job, and if your religion doesn't allow you to do certain components or elements of your job, then unfortunately you got to find something else.
Yeah, now, of course, there's like 10 different parts of this I want to talk about. I like this example because it does allow us to sort of put Huckabee and people like him to the test, but there's a bunch of flaws with the analogy, of course. First of all, even if you were denied a drink, that doesn't rise to anywhere near the level of being denied the ability to get married.
Right.
So the fact that he won't even say, even though it's a much smaller thing, is kind of pathetic. And we're talking about levels of inconvenience. Like, it might be that she won't serve the drink, but one of the other flight attendants will serve the drink. I don't even really think that that's okay. I think that you should just serve the damn drink, because I know how this runs, and you don't have 5 flight attendants all standing behind one cart serving, well, I can do the Perrier, you can do the juice, right? You're okay with oranges? Okay, you do the juice. That's not how it works.
Right.
But remember that she didn't just not want to hand out the same-sex marriage ones, and so I'll do the regular ones, and then Joey can do the same-sex. She wouldn't do any of them, and she stopped everyone else from doing any of them. That would be like the Muslim flight attendant shutting down the flight. Nobody can go anywhere.
Right.
Nobody can drink anything.
No drinks for anyone because I'm against alcohol. Right. And it's not okay. It's not okay regardless of what your religion is. Again, you have to do your job, and more importantly, you have to follow the law, right? So in the case of the Muslim flight attendant, she didn't necessarily break any laws, right? By refusing to serve drinks, she might have, gone against the policy of the airline, but that's it. In Kim Davis's case, she is literally breaking the law, and that is not okay.
Totally, yeah. And by the way, this is maybe just a little side point, but why is it that if you don't want someone else to drink alcohol, it's understandable to believe that, and you might even be able to enforce it on other people if you say that God says they shouldn't drink alcohol. what if I was involved in an accident with a drunk driver and it killed my mom when I was growing up or something like that?
Right.
What if I have a much better reason to be against alcohol? If it's not tied to a supernatural being, nobody gives a fuck what your opinion is based on. It can't be based on, maybe I do research on alcoholism and I understand how much of a problem it is. I understand what it leads to fights on planes. All that intellectual stuff, it doesn't matter at all. It has to be based on something from thousands of years ago in the deserts of the Middle East for some reason. And also, so I looked up some of the examples that Huckabee was using when he was saying, oh, accommodations are always made for Muslims, so we shouldn't have to worry about it. So he talked about in Michigan, they spent $25,000 for foot baths for Muslim students. First of all, that was back in 2007. So he had to dig 8 years ago to find an example of an accommodation that was given to a university where 10% of the students are Muslim. So it seems kind of reasonable. It's not for one student they spent the money. And also, you say $25,000, and that sounds like a lot of money. That's something like half of one student's yearly tuition at a school like Michigan. That's not a lot of money for a permanent installation at the school that's going to serve literally thousands of students.
Right.
And also, so he talks about the other stuff like giving the prayer rugs. Yeah, I got news for you. We give Bibles to prisoners too. And also, as we were talking about before the show began, you look at all of these examples that he gave, and he can't seem to come up with one where what we gave to the Muslims took away the right of a Christian.
Right.
We don't do that. It's just that apparently Christians think that what they should be allowed to do is to ban people they don't like from doing things. He can't find an example of that sort of accommodation for Muslims.